up for Laverne and Shirley, everybody. Let them hear it.
I graduated from college in 1981, and I didn't have a job. So I swallowed hard, called up my brother, and asked if I could live with him. He said yes. He lived about a mile north of our brewery in the River West neighborhood of Milwaukee back then. I moved on in, and his birthday was coming up, and I bought him a book on how to make beer. I heard he was looking at trying to make beer, so I bought him that book. He actually read the thing, and then he went out and bought himself a home brew kit and made a batch of beer, which looked like hell. But he bottled it up, gave me a bottle, and it wasn't the worst beer I ever had. It wasn't the best beer either. But I figured, if he made it that good, I could do better.
Now, beer dates way back in human history. The oldest piece of written language is a beer recipe. This is because, depending on the time period, whether it was the Egyptians, if you were a slave or a taxman, you got paid in beer, which was awesome for them because they couldn't drink their water supply. It was contaminated with harmful bacteria. People don't know harmful bacteria strains can't live in beer because of the pH level. So they're getting paid in beer, they're getting their nutrients, they're able to do their jobs, they're pushing civilization forward.
So I decided to make a batch of beer, and he made some beer, and we started entering local contests and won local awards, made more homebrew, entered state contests, won state awards, and made more homebrew, and entered national contests, won national awards. About that time, our friends started telling us, you guys should open up a brewery. And when you're 20-something years old, you believe them. So we decided to do is write up this one-page handwritten business plan and run around and present it to a bunch of bankers, and we were thinking we'd get maybe $250,000 or something like that, but we didn't understand back then that you had to have money to borrow money. And all the bankers turned us down, which was probably a good thing, because if we ever would have gotten the money, I think we would have blown it all and gone bankrupt.
Now, this building we're standing in, this always wasn't a brewery. In fact, this was in the mid-90s. It was vacated since the 20s, so 7 years vacant. It was an old coal power plant, and it's actually set to be torn down in the mid-90s. But the thing is, a lot of citizens in Milwaukee were like, you can't tear that building down. It's got Cream City brick on it. We live in the Cream City. This needs to stay, this is a historic site. So in 1997, we got this building for just $1. Now, we did pay a lot of money in back taxes towards the city. That's the only reason we're here today, is because that sticker price was $1.
Because I know I had this discussion with a brewer last week, because he was telling me about some guy came up and tried his beer and didn't like it. And I told him, I said, well, if you're making a beer that everybody likes, you're making Miller High Life, or something that doesn't offend everybody.
When I first came here, I was drinking more of the River West Stein, just something a little bit more middle of the road, but I like hoppy beers, I like dark beers, just anything with a really good flavor to it. And when I had the Eastside Dark, we like to say, once you go dark, you don't go back, so that doesn't make sense.
But the thing is, when they want a healthy option, they think that I'm actually going to give them the lightest beer that we have in color. If you're actually caring about your weight, I'm giving you the darkest roast. Because when you put it in a kiln for a longer period of time, essentially you're burning off excess sugars and starches that are going to be non-fermentable in fermentation. Therefore, you are creating the lightest calorie and fat content beer. One person, that's all I get is just one person. If one person's excited, if you don't believe me, I know I'm not a scientist, but I'm just going to let you know that this body didn't just happen, okay?
When you're a craft brewer, you're an artist, and you really need to kind of branch out yourself and be yourself, and people kind of like that the most. They want to have a personality behind the beer, and I believe that our beers do have a certain personality behind them.
Until 1516, the Bavarians passed the first consumer protection law known to man as the Reinheitsgebot. Now, in the Reinheitsgebot, it said beer could only be made with 3 ingredients. It's malt or barley, hops, water. They didn't know about it, but there was a 4th ingredient, and it was yeast. It was always involved in fermentation. It's actually how you create alcohol.
We started working with local farmers, and we started making both malt and hops here in the state of Wisconsin. And I also found a friend of mine who had a PhD in microbiology from Purdue, and I asked him if he could ever cultivate a local yeast. And so he said yes. He came over to my doorstep one day, and he had asked for a vial or a pound of the malt that we had grown here in the state. He took it back, crushed up the malt, put it in a vial, along with some water, just the malt and the water, and things started to grow, which meant there was something on the grain. And he was able to find some local strains of yeast on that grain. He was able to separate it out. Eventually we sent it to Y Yeast to get it purified. And they sent it back to us, and we made a batch of beer called the Wisconsinite, which is actually the first beer in the United States here to be made all indigenous ingredients and with an indigenous yeast.
In this brewery in 2013, we did a little over 40,000 barrels of beer, which is awesome for us because we made the jump from a home brewery to a microbrewery. Now we're a regional craft brewery. That's where we stand today. 40,000 can sound like a lot, but let's compare it to, a macro brewer, domestic. Miller Coors, Miller Brewing Company. Here in Milwaukee, on top of their facilities, they have 6 large fermentation tanks. Now, our 40,000 barrels would only fill up 1 1/3 of their fermentation tanks. They also turn theirs out weekly. We actually did the math on it. What Anheuser-Busch spills on the floor on a 3rd shift on a Wednesday is the equivalent to what we put out for a whole year of beer. Now, I'm not supposed to say it, but I think their beer is better off on the floor. Ooh, sweet Nate's.
Lakefront beer in general makes me feel pretty good when I drink it. Makes me feel drunk pretty fast, which is nice. But no, I feel good about it because it's quality beer. And I know that I'm giving back to the Milwaukee community. Every dollar I spend is coming right back into the community I live in, so that's nice.
We also try recycling energy as much as possible around here. We'll take the heat that comes off our refrigeration system and try heating up cold water that comes in from the city to our hot water heaters. When we're done boiling the beer, in the kettles, we'll send it through a heat exchanger. And we use good old cold city Milwaukee water to chill it down. And that water who gets chilled down, or that was cold, then becomes hot, and then actually is water that goes in the next batch of beer. So we actually recycle the heat that comes off of the batch of beer into the next batch of water. So we use that heat more than once. We don't throw that down the drain.
We try not to make a big imprint for kind of what we're taking in from the community, but also kind of giving back in the best way we can without having a lot of trash, and just kind of reminding people that also when they leave that it's an important thing to keep in mind.
And so the community then supports you back. And that's, we're going up against a lot of big national brewers, so anytime you can show that you are part of the community, help support it, the community also supports you back.